he also had several roosters. And trying to keep track of the roosters and know when they had performed their duties became a real chore. So, being an ingenious fellow, he got little bells and put them around the rooster's neck. That way he could know when the rooster was chasing a chicken and things were going to happen. Well, one day he noticed that one of his prize roosters no longer rang his bell. Upon investigation, the farmer discovered that this particular rooster had learned how to pick up the bell in his beak and hold it so it wouldn't jingle when he chased the chicken. Well, he was quite amazed at this, so he decided to enter that particular rooster in the county fair. And when the judges saw this and saw how this rooster performed, they decided to award that rooster the Nobel Peace Prize. And another set of judges that were watching this decided they had to give another award, so they gave that rooster the Pulitzer Prize. And that was one of Dad's favorite poems. And speaking of golf, though no one was, I am. Dad had one of the wildest swings you could imagine. Even Arnold Palmer would have asked him how he could hit the ball that way, but he did. And in case you're curious, the gentleman second from the left is my dad. The gentleman on the far right is my uncle, Uncle James. Okay? The one on the far left is Chuck Wortham, and the one next to Dad and between him and his brother is Bob Doherty. All four of them were in the candy business in Cambridge and so forth. So, Dad liked to tell jokes, and he felt that humor was an integral part of a complete person. And as I said to you before, laugh every day and feel better for it. But a story of recent origin that I think he would have thoroughly enjoyed was the one about the three men of the cloth who enjoyed golf together. A priest, a minister, and a rabbi. So out they went to play golf this particular day, and they started out. And after a few holes, they wound up behind a twosome that was very slow. And it got slower and slower. So one of them, the language started to slip a little, and the other said, nope, we can't have that among us. Let's go to the pro shop and tell the pro. So we went to the pro shop, found him, and berated him up one side and down the other as to how terrible this was and how it ruined your game and so forth. When they came up for air, the pro said, hey guys, I know exactly what you mean. It is terrible. It does ruin your game, no question about it. But I gotta tell you, those two guys ahead of you were blind. The priest says, dear Mary, Mother of God, I shall have to say 1,000 rosaries. And the minister says, dear God in heaven, how could I think what I was thinking? I shall have to do penance for a month. The rabbi looks at him and says, what's the matter? Couldn't they play at night? And now on a more serious note, in order to fully understand what all this means, let's cover a few basic facts. First, Dad was accelerated by his mother in terms of learning at an early age. And having graduated from high school at 12 and going on to college, and then completing the college at the age of 16, he was, in his own words, an insufferable squirt. And that brings me to the point that I completed high school at a rather early age, and my parents felt that one insufferable squirt in the family was enough, so I wasn't allowed to go on to college for a couple of years. But that's beside the point. Here's Dad standing between two of his classmates. Now, if you don't think that isn't a ridiculous I don't know how you describe it. As I said, his early schooling was home education, or his early education was home schooling. Teeth must be in wrong. And his mother had been a teacher prior to the marriage. She felt comfortable exposing her oldest to all the advantages and benefits of early learning. All of that propelled Dad into a situation where he was always the youngest, aware of his knowledge and mental abilities, and thrust into the company of boys several years older and more mature in many ways than he. Once Dad started his education, it never stopped. It kept right on going until the day he became incapacitated. I won't dwell on that, but it was a very sorry picture because he couldn't speak, and you never knew whether he was understanding you or could respond in any way. The real question was whether Dad was a dreamer or a realist. Dad had what many consider to be an uncanny ability to predict what would happen in government and the political arena. The fact is that he was simply refusing to accept the popular protestations of either the media or the politicos, for he recognized the subversive elements and plans that were being installed and worked. You may draw your own conclusions as to what is happening, but if you take a realistic view, you must come face to face with the fact that the United States is being socialized. They are being socialized by intent, by our elected officials, and if you are in a public school, excuse me, a government school, they're not public, government. You are periodically being indoctrinated with the idea of globalism, wiping out any vestiges of patriotism or appreciation of your home country. Dad came to growing awareness of the destructive forces at work, both here and around the world, and particularly in the United States. He opened not only my eyes, but many others to what was happening to our country. And of course, you all know that's why the John Birch Society came into existence. Dad didn't know this back in the early 40s. It was subsequent to World War II that he began, as we would say today, connecting the dots. And the picture began to fall into place. And then he did more research and digging and came up with how it was put together and who was behind it. And he kept working as a historian in research and tracing it backwards until he finally put the picture in place. And much of that he began putting on paper in what was originally called One Man's Opinion, a publication that preceded American Opinion and National Review, a review of the news, and which has now become the New American, which is still devoted to revealing the truth. But with his accumulated knowledge of history, his analytical mind, and his continuous pursuit of truth and facts, it's really no wonder that he was able to recognize Fidel Castro as a communist, despite the fact that the New York Times was continuously promoting him as an agrarian reformer. Nothing could have been further from the truth. Ask yourselves, was that an accident on the part of the New York Times? Or was there something else going on behind the scenes where a little research would have revealed it, which is what Dad had come on. He knew that had happened, and he was able to determine it. At this point, all I'd like to inject is that I inherited Dad's concerns, and while I am not as knowledgeable or as capable as he, I do try in those ways that I can to educate my fellow citizens, because I write a monthly column on the Constitution. I take up a different aspect of the Constitution in each column, and I try to educate my audience to the reasons why it was done the way it was done, and the forces that are trying to destroy it that are currently at work. May not be the greatest literary